All right, it looks like we have a quorum of the Board of Finance. So with that, I'm going to call to order the Board of Finance for the City of Burlington on Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 at 5:34 p.m. It is a information only type of meeting related to our continued department level budget presentations for fiscal year 26. And so tonight we have a number of departments, but our first item, of course, is the agenda. So looking to Board of Finance members only, is there a motion on the agenda?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. And I will just note that I don't have any Board of Finance members in person, so I'm looking to my online crew to help here. So thank you. Moved by Councilor Travers. Is there a second?
Second. My camera's not. My camera is very strange, right?
Second by Councilor Barlow's chair. Yeah, but I heard.
No, I'm actually here though.
Okay. Okay, great. That was your voice. So okay. This is a long week, y'all. So all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. On to our second item, which is our public forum. It's the practice of Board of Finance to first go to members in the public who are in person from the public to address the board. And then we go online. Is anyone in the room who'd like to address Board of Finance? The only staff. I'm going to take that as a no. Moving online. I see former City Councilor Sharon Busher. Good evening, Sharon. You're up.
Good evening, and it's not raining, so why are we inside? But anyways, I have a couple of comments. One is under the capital fund, when there's a list of all of the various funds, the Conservation Legacy Fund is listed, and that's a restricted fund. It's like the Housing Trust Fund. So I was surprised to see that included. And then in the FY26, there is a dollar amount from that fund. Now, there are some administrative components of that fund, and it funds, excuse me, it funds the community gardens, but that's all. And so I hope that in that presentation, there'll be a little bit of clarity about that, because I was concerned about that. It's restricted, and the voters voted for a specific purpose for that dollar amount. The other thing is on the attorney's office. I'm not there, so I didn't know Lisa Jones either is retiring or retired. That's decades of knowledge going out the door. Oh my goodness. And when I look at the attorney's office, besides Kim Sturdivant, everybody seems relatively new, or have been employed for a few years, not for many years. And so I wasn't sure if the budget had money in it for reaching out outside of that office I'm going to throw in Joe McNeil's name, but I'm not suggesting he's the person, but for some ability to touch base with someone who may have had experience with an item that is coming up infrequently. And maybe it's there embedded in the budget, but in the past there has been some consultant fees, etc., and I just didn't see that. So I'm just raising that. And then the last thing is the DPW section, main section. I wasn't quite sure. I mean, you've got the large divisions, but I didn't know how many employees in entirety DPW has, and how many were added since 2021. I think that would be very important to understand. And then for me, Mayor, this is a question that I have. When I was looking at, and I remember this item coming before all of you, the transfer of the 3 street maintenance workers to the water resource collection area. And now we're having difficulty filling the street maintenance positions. So I wasn't sure if part of the discussion, internal discussion, would it be easier to fill water resource collection positions and then transfer back those street maintenance people? I'm just trying to make sense out of what is a staffing problem for that department and wanting to understand, are there options that are being considered, but really maybe are too minutia to be included in the details that are provided tonight. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else online like to address the Board of Finance? I am only seeing city councilors and staff online, and I think that would be our last public comment. So with that, I will close public comment and we will move on to our first presentation of the evening, which is the Department of Public Works related to the general fund portion of their department. Chapin Spencer,
Right,
welcome.
thank you.
Long time no see.
All right, so I need to share my screen here. Go into presentation mode. Thank you all for the opportunity here. And there we go. All right, thank you so much for the opportunity. Chapin Spencer, Director of Public Works. I'm joined by 3 division directors here. Division Director Megan Moore will be here momentarily. This is going to be a quick presentation on DPW's general fund budget. You're seeing here our org chart. Interestingly, this department is a compendium of general fund budgets, special revenue fund budgets, enterprise fund budgets, and also some capital budgets. So what you're seeing in blue here spread across 3 of our 4 divisions and the admin program are the general fund programs that we'll be touching on as part of this presentation. Highlights from 2025, we take seriously our 24/7 operations, street maintenance and provision of water and wastewater. All these services are 24/7 services, and every day when people don't think about us, we are doing our job well. We are currently also managing over 500 million of capital projects across DPW to renew our aging infrastructure. As former Councilor Busher addressed, we have transferred 3 street maintenance field technicians over to water resources, doing the same work, maintaining our wastewater and stormwater collection systems, just doing it within water resources where management is laser focused day to day on water and wastewater. We are struggling to fill recycling positions and street maintenance positions. Last night, 2 nights ago, appreciate the councilor's support in the recruitment and retention bonuses. That will be a major step, hopefully, in remedying those vacancies. We have good news in that tech services was able to fill a number of vacancies this year and put us in a strong position to manage capital projects for FY26. Cost savings for 26, our first initial proposal was to remove the recycling program from the city, have haulers pick it up without consolidating it, but they could pick it up with split pack trucks or other efficiency approaches. We received feedback from the council that you wanted to maintain the consolidated recycling program. So we have gone from removing it from city operation to budgeting for continued consolidated collection. We are working with the CT office to shift to DPW general fund accountant as part of the centralization of accounting functions. And we are really proud that we think of ourselves as a contractor. We bill for a lot of our work, and it means that our budget, while quite large, over $10 million in expenses, pulls in a substantial amount of revenue, around $6 million a year, because we bill for a lot of our work. And you'll see that listed here, from activities that street maintenance does to tech services, capital project work, and we do a lot of work for our division, water resources division. One of the examples we like to show is that we have budgeted tightly and we make the numbers work by doing our work better, not by increasing our labor lines, is we have had $285,000 as our salt budget for 10 years. And we have really dialed in how we apply salt, because as Division Director Megan Moyer points out, if we can avoid putting salt in our lake and rivers, we benefit our environment quite strongly. So here is the general fund budget, the blue programs that we talked about in the beginning of the presentation. If we look at the budget overall above the blue line, our expenses are proposed to go up 5.8% and our revenues 10.9%. The important numbers on net are to notice that our budget net impact on the general fund is proposing to go down by over $100,000. So we're lighter on our impact on the general fund. Why are we showing such significant increases in revenues and expenses? It is because we are seeking to sustainably fund the municipal consolidated recycling program. You'll see in that middle box is what is happening or proposed to happen for recycling and solid waste. It is going from a $1 million revenue to a $1.7 million revenue, which is a 66% increase. This is what's needed to sustainably fund recycling and to tackle a couple of other needs, which we'll touch on in a second. All the rest of DPW outside of recycling is basically flat. Again, reducing our net impact on the general fund, but expenses there are increasing by less than 0.1%. So the revenues, the large change in revenues, $700,000 increase in the solid waste generation tax. What does that mean for people who have trash service? It means that in your trash bill, your monthly solid waste generation tax on that bill will go from $6.90 per unit per month to $12 per unit per month. It will fund several things, which I'll touch on in the expense slide. Parking Services is budgeting aggressively for their revenues this year. That is through fines and other infractions for our Parking Services team through the downtown and across the city. To really achieve those revenue goals, we need to utilize license plate reader technology, sometimes called optical character recognition technology. That will enable our parking service agents to be more efficient and effective. I'm also pleased to say that in tech services, we are budgeting an increase in billable revenue while taking out general fund capital support, which used to pay for salaries that now can go to projects. So we're taking out the general fund capital support of people being able to invest in new projects, and we are still billing enough or more to have it be a net positive to the general fund. Lastly, street maintenance is budgeting to do more billable work this year. The new item is proposing to add a fall clean sweep in addition to a spring clean sweep. Getting organic material off of the roads before winter limits the amount of phosphorus and organic material that washes into the lake over the winter. On the expense side, the major changes, as I said, are in this recycling and solid waste budget. This is the itemization of those changes. $440,000 of revenue has been added into the recycling program to sustainably fund the program. That includes an addition of 2 to 3 FTEs so that when people are out because they're sick or they're on vacation, we're not burdening street maintenance employees. You heard from a couple of those on Monday night. And the goal here is to run a more independent recycling program. Additionally, we're proposing to cover pretty much all of the indirect and direct costs of the recycling program. For years, we have not budgeted enough to cover these expenses, and as a result, the general fund has had to pick up that expense. We are proposing $160,000 for debt service for 201 Flynn Avenue. The council had approved the purchase of 201 Flynn for the purposes of uniting our soil management area. And this is to pay off the airport, which loaned us the money to both purchase the facility and fit it up for soil management. Lastly, we have $100,000 budgeted to start scoping the repairs to the Manhattan Drive landfill. You all know the city has 2 post-closure landfills. The big one is right by Manhattan Drive in the old North End. And it has gas and leachate collection systems that are decades old and are urgently needing of repair. The good news here is if we do this work, we make the landfill solar ready. And BED and the city have been talking to Encore about installing solar on the landfill. Can't do that until the landfill's in good shape to receive that solar. What are the threats and opportunities? Federal grant funding. While we have committed grant agreements for almost all of our grants and are progressing smoothly with those, there could be a change at the federal level. Another threat is that we are managing, as you all know, right outside this building, many large, complex and interrelated capital projects. Getting those to conclusion successfully on time, on budget is a lot of effort. We need to fill all our positions to be able to meet our billing revenue targets. We don't meet our earned revenue unless we do the work. And I will continue to say that something that the mayor, continues to remind me of is that we need to do a better job of maintaining what we've got. And we have a broad array of infrastructure, and we are interested in continuing to improve the city and build new things, but we're struggling to maintain what we have. So in summary, the initial budget that we brought to the administration was basically a flat budget. This current budget submission, while decreasing its net impact on the general fund, does have revenue increase and expense increase for the recycling program to be more sustainable. It does maintain overall DPW level of service, and while it cuts the holiday tree pickup, it adds fall clean sweep. And with that, we are happy to answer your questions.
Without me even giving my preamble around, you have 10 minutes, you took exactly 10 minutes to answer, so
There we go.
model that until all the future people who present, you have about 10 minutes and then 10 minutes for Q&A to just keep us on track and not here until 2 a.m. I'm sure I would appreciate. Thank you very much.
Great.
All right, so opening up to questions from counselors, doesn't have to be a speaker on Board of Finance. I see Councilor Barlow. If we can go back to the grid on the screen, it's helpful for me to see everyone's hands. Councilor Barlow, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have 2 questions. The first is, and I haven't emailed either one of them to you, Chapin, so I apologize for that. The first one is, do we have a cost for Christmas tree pickup? I've seen it mentioned as a cost savings for FY26, but I'm curious about how much that effort costs. And my second question, which I'll just give to you now, is how do we collect solid waste tax from the Burlington residents who self-haul? Does the CSWD drop-off locations collect that for us? And those are my 2. Thanks.
Great. Division Director Lee Perry is going to come up to answer these. I will say the cost for tree pickup is not so much an avoided cost as a redeployment of resource to earn revenue, and we can speak to that.
Yeah, so we usually advertise for tree pickup first week of January. It's all hands on deck in the street department. All 16 employees go out picking up Christmas trees around the city. It involved using 3 to 4 full-size dump trucks, 1-ton pickups, bucket loader, backhoes. The cost probably around $8,000 in salaries and equipment time. That does not include the Parks Department. They go out with their chippers and chip on location at Letty, Callahan Park, and those areas. And the solid waste generation tax, CSWD charges, they have a formula, they charge by weight. So they charge by the bag, and 174 pounds of garbage is equivalent to 1 residential unit pickup. So they keep track of how many bags and weigh them, and then accordingly pay the per RDU amount to the city each month. So indirectly, people who self-haul are being charged that tax, and we are receiving money from Chipman Solid Waste District.
To add one thing to that, Mark, is just when we don't do Christmas tree pickup, we will be available to do billable work, whether that's replacing catch basins, doing billable work for other divisions. Parks can focus on maintaining city buildings, etc. So there's some of the avoided costs, but then there's additional revenue opportunities.
Yes, and it is advertised as one day, but not everybody puts their tree out that day, so it kind of lingers. I've seen where we pick them up into March. Throughout the winter, and by then they're usually buried in snowbanks. Such.
Thank you.
Where are you now? Okay, all right. I'll start Councilor Barlow. Okay, Councilor Carpenter.
Thanks. Just on the Christmas trees. And I well appreciate why we, because of the manpower, can't do it, but I would hope that we can do some facilitation, i.e., get a list of people who will do it. Maybe that's a revenue source for the Boy Scouts, just to be accommodating. And we can also try to remind people you picked it up wherever you bought it. So perhaps you can take it back there. The other thing, and I don't know, I just wanted to bring up, we passed that resolution on Monday, asking DPW to look at certain things to assist in Church Street. And I just wanted you to, I know you don't have numbers, that was 2 days ago, but just sort of any observations you have about that resolution and the budget, how.
Yes, there was a number of items in that Monday resolution. One, we have already, prior to the resolution, asked our contractor, SD Ireland, to give us a budget and a proposal for one-way westbound traffic. We have a plan. We have updated our construction map to be clear. We can continue to evolve that map. There was also, recommendations for enhanced marketing and outreach and communication. We are partnering with BWD and our resident engineer and communication firm to do that. So yes, we understand what's in that resolution and are ready to meet the obligations under it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Schachter.
One is a comment and then one is a question. I just want to say, I want to echo Councilor Carpenter's advice to kind of be proactive if we are going to cut Christmas tree pickup about alternative options. I see a world in which people start just leaving them out on the street or potentially like burning them, or to me, a lot of people haven't thought ahead about how to dispose of their tree because we're programmed to feel like it can be laid out. So
Yep.
I'm a little worried there's costs associated with that might meet or exceed the relatively small cost associated with pickup. So I just want to voice that.
Okay.
And then the other is, because we're going to be, based on your presentation on Monday, putting out an RFPQ for recycling and hopefully choosing some new option or whatever it ends up being by Jan 1. I'm curious how you budgeted for recycling without information for at least half a year.
It's a great question. And the short answer is we budgeted enough for us to do it sustainably as a city. If we get bids and they come in less, then we think the council will be motivated to, pick the cheaper option. And then we can look at either reducing the solid waste generation tax or keeping it the same and building an SA for future years.
So you've kind of done a worst case scenario.
Correct. Yeah, and that's why we acknowledge a 70% increase to a tax is a difficult conversation, but we didn't want to be doing this multiple times.
Other questions from councilors? Councilor Travers.
Thank you, Mayor, and apologies for not being there in person. Chapin, as always, thanks to you and the whole team for the great work that you do for our city. I know that sometimes it feels thankless, particularly in your department, but allow me to, as I often do, relay my thanks again. I don't want to get too hung up on Christmas trees because I think it's not the mission of DPW, but It's actually something I feel pretty strongly about. You know, I think it's one of those small things that has relatively small cost that many people in our community have come to rely on and enjoy. I agree with Councilor Schachter that I think our not doing it is going to have unintended consequences with respect to folks still putting it out there and who's going to be responsible to it, or folks, you know, dumping trees in locations that we don't want them. And so, you know, if there's a way for us to continue this service, that's something that I would strongly advocate for. And if it's truly something we cannot do feasibly, then I agree with Councilor Carpenter that we're going to have to be able to proactively provide residents another option. A specific question I have is in terms of the increase in funding for a sustainable recycling program, am I correct? And maybe this is a Catherine question, that increase is sort of incorporated into the line item on, at the moment at least, professional services and contractual services. I see a significant increase there, and I'm sort of accounting that for the sustainable funding source, or am I missing something there?
Great. The answer is that it is built in a number of different budget lines that I will be happy to get to you. The increase that you're seeing on contractual services, 270,000 was budgeted last year. That is our tip fees, what it costs us to drop off our waste at the recycling center that CSWD manages, the sorting center. That will continue. What's added on top of that is $160,000 for debt service for 201 Flint Avenue and the fit there. So
Okay.
the extra costs are all through the budget, including increasing our parts line and equipment maintenance because the vehicles are so old. So we will get you an itemized breakdown of what's driving that increase cost and where it is.
All right, thank you for that. That makes sense. Another question I had is with respect to fuel. I'm wondering if you can describe a little bit more, and if you don't have an answer right now, happy to take that afterwards as well. How you budget for fuel year to year. I see that the fuel budget is in alignment with the same budget as in 2025, but of course, you know, fuel costs are a changing figure year to year, and so just wondering how you came to that figure.
Yeah, so we usually budget our fuel off of prior year's averages, so we'll take like the last 5-year average of fuel. Total gallons used, like you stated, prices do fluctuate, but they seem to be leveled off recently in both unleaded and diesel. And our fuel usage hasn't been that much, so we feel confident that we can level fund that line from FY25 to FY26.
There's one important addition to that, President Travers, which is that many years ago, with Bob Rustin's leadership in the CAO's office, we set up a $250,000 reserve fund for the 3 unpredictables in DPW's budget: fuel, salt, and help me out. Is it OT? No, it's not OT. There's one more in the operations budget that I will get to you, but that's available to handle the unpredictableness of the winter storms that we get and the fuel price spike. So that $250,000 was set up 8-9 years ago, and because we budget well and manage to that, we haven't had to tap that yet, but it's there and available.
Okay. Mayor, may I just make one last quick comment here? It's not a question,
We
but
have 1 minute, so we're gonna try to let one more counselor get a word in, so a quick comment.
yes. So just my quick comment that this will apply to all the presentations this evening, as well as the presentations we received previously. I think it's just sort of worth saying out loud that as we continue with the budget review here, I would personally like for us to find a way to be able to sunset the gross receipts tax that's currently baked into our ordinance. I know that there's a significant cost that would be associated with that, I believe to the tune of about $900,000. So as we look at these budgets, you know, and I will follow up with some additional questions, Chapin, you know, I'm wondering if departments have a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there that can be shaved off of some line items like professional and contractual services or some of these other you know, costs that are estimated, but you know, maybe are coming in a little bit over what may be necessary. And so I will follow up in greater detail, but it's going to be a common theme here that I'll be asking for departments to consider, is whether or not there's some line items where a little bit could be shaved off that would add up to a lot of it in a bigger picture that may give us some flexibility in terms of that gross receipts tax. So thank you very much for accommodating that additional time, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. We have time for one more comment, one question. If anyone has one, the counselor hasn't asked yet. Being none, we will roll those 42 seconds into the next presentation.
And
Thank you, Chapin.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
And I have a DPW commission meeting to go to. My staff is going to keep presenting for DPW. If there are questions that I can follow up with later, I will do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 4, which is a presentation for our capital and fleet. Ashley.
I'm obsessed. I mean, it is a good topic. We have a lot of cool things in place.
All right, Ashley, welcome.
Hi, you're presenting with Counselor Grant. Counselor Grant, you also have done our.
I was just saying, I'm obsessed with fleet.
Well, you're in the right place. So we started our day together and we're ending our day together.
Yes.
We still love us drink, Ashley, so don't worry, the time hasn't started yet. It's my new favorite thing to do for staff.
It's good because my computer was not functioning, so.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, I just want to get these up. Okay. Alright. Alright, hello. Thank you for having me tonight to talk about capital, general fund capital budget that also includes our fleet. I will try to go through these relatively quickly to leave enough time for questions. This slide is to give you an overview of really what is a smallish general fund capital team. Within the clerk treasurer's office or this new DFA, Department of Financial Administration, it's really myself, and then I have a lot of support from our senior accountant Stephen Donahue, and then we have a interdepartmental capital committee that is made up of really almost every single one, if not all, general fund departments. This is just a quick overview of last year's general fund capital budget. We had a total budget of about $39 million. You'll see on the left-hand side there what major projects made up last year's budget. Altogether, those combined for about 85% of our general fund capital budget. 63% of that was made up of grant revenues. So historically, we have had a large number of grants making up and revenue expected making up our general fund capital budget. And looking at this year's budget, you'll see a lot of changes and some new focus areas. One of the things that we're trying to do this year is really looking at how we fund some of our badly needed, deficient in maintenance type projects. And on our facility side is a good example where we're looking to decrease mobilization by fully funding some of these needed improvements in one funding cycle. So that is a huge savings in that sense. You guys also reviewed Monday night, I believe it was, the request from our office to support a grant anticipation note, which is really important. Actually, I've been pushing for this because we have a lot of large capital projects that have a lot of large expected revenues coming in from grants, but in the meantime, the general fund has to support those expenditures. And so this is going to give us a little bit more flexibility and support to the general fund, especially as our federal funding uncertainty continues over the next however many years. Impact fees is another important topic to just touch on. You know, we're looking to really leverage available revenues to help support, eligible projects, and some of those have larger expenditures. Historically speaking, 73% of the historic capital budgets have been taken up by transportation projects. So looking at a transportation impact fee helps us rethink how we can distribute available capital resources to support some of these other fee categories that we've talked about ceasing collection on.
This budget truly focuses on getting back to the basics and really infusing capital dollars into some of the issues that we see with our existing assets today. So that is a huge focus of this budget. I've also talked a lot about internally about really doing a strategic plan, looking at how we can better plan for all of our assets, and especially adding some planning based on how future growth projections will impact city assets and how all this aligns with our city priorities. Partnerships, continuing to work on leveraging financial opportunities and financial resources from partners throughout the community and outside the community. And that includes continued work on fee-for-service and pilot agreements with institutions. I wanted to share this information with you all just so you have a sense of how we all have been looking at prioritizing our capital projects. On the left is we did a survey, and I'm hoping you all know about the survey that was part of our capital planning map that we shared when we talked about the 20 million general obligation bonds. Here are the results of that survey, our top 4 priority projects. People really want us to hit our facilities, sidewalk replacement, Winooski Bridge, and street paving. That's not too surprising. I think it matches with what we hear from folks externally. And then what was also really neat was we asked folks out, the community to help us rank our prioritization criteria. And so you'll see there, affordability is no surprise again, the top prioritization criteria, but not closely followed by accessibility, efficiency, and equity. So these are some things that we're going to be trying to infuse as we talk about capital budgeting and beyond. Here's a snapshot of the proposed capital budget. In your packets, you will also see a by project breakdown of allocations to specific projects. And I'm happy to go through that in some more detail. The total budget is about $15.5 million. This year, the composition is slightly different from the last couple of years. We're looking at being more reliant on bond funding this year, almost 70%, followed up by dedicated taxes, and then some of our other revenue sources. This is just a quick highlighting overview slide of what some of our major capital expenditures will look like. You will see in this table here, these are the projects that are making up 73% of this year's proposed budget. Again, we're really showing that commitment to taking care of our existing infrastructure. We have a huge commitment this year, thanks to the $20 million general obligation bond, to support replacement of general fund fleet. We are in dire need of replacing general fund fleet, so this is really exciting. And fleet team will be coming back to the city council in probably another month to talk through a request purchasing authorization for a list of vehicles that will hopefully come in the next year or two. We are continuing to invest in our police department in this budget, and we are hoping to wrap up some of our larger transportation projects. Some of the things you don't see in the capital budgets are things that are ongoing and are using what we call the carry forward budgeting. Champlain Parkway is continuing this fiscal year. That will hopefully wrap up, but that did not need any additional new need. You'll see a street capital allocation for it this year, but that is it. And then lastly, what I'm hoping to do this year to continue improving in our financial processes and prioritization. We also have some funding going towards a replacement of our accounting software system, which is again outdated, and hoping for a better system to help us just overall do better in our budget management. Here are some threats and opportunities that I see in looking at the capital budgets. We had talked about during even before town meeting day came about, this concept of looking at our charter and considering potential increase to allow for borrowing, the borrowing limit to be increased to $10 million over a period of years. That conversation we're hoping will continue and then in the coming year, so that will hopefully bring us to a more sustainable level of funding for the general fund capital budget. I won't touch on the impact fee one as I talked on that already, but we can discuss if you guys have questions on that one some more. Continuing into this year, we still have a lot of uncertainty around our federal grants that we're relying on and tariffs. Right now, as you saw over time, 60% of major capital projects are supported by this funding source. It is a major major revenue that we are relying on. In addition, I'm working with project teams to continue conversations with vendors so that we can try to do our best to navigate any unexpected increases to cost of projects related to tariffs and prices of things that we foresee happening. And then this last bullet here, I would really like us to push towards communicating with the state level for how important it would be for them to consider non-participating costs that be eligible for cost share in our grant and our major funded construction projects. They are a huge burden to the general fund capital program. It's about $500,000 per project at the bare minimum, and we are asked to go to 100% in addition to any local match requirements that we have. This last slide is just going over three additional considerations. As you'll see in, I think, the next slide, the demand for capital resources on the general fund side is always, and probably across the board, honestly, is always going to be greater than the available capital resources that we have. So we're going to have to continue working with the public and with you all and how we prioritize all of our capital projects to make sure that all of our capital assets have opportunities for funding. I want to continue working on this capital planning map that we put into place. I want to continue improving it and really making it a tool that all of us can use for implementation of and prioritization of our projects. And then lastly, something that we wanted to mention in regards to our fleet. We are working to, hopefully in the next year, working to establish a centralized internal service fund for the city fleet operations, which would include better planning for cash purchases, better forecast for maintenance, fuel, and replacement expenses. And this has been an issue in terms of how we maintain and replace general fund overall fleet. General fund fleet. This slide is related to the 5-year capital plan. Last year, the council adopted the first 5-year capital plan. We have revised it. You'll see again and by project in your packet today, the FY27 through 31 plan. This is the early projections of those projects that we see in our pipeline. And obviously we have a lot in our pipeline. So I think that, obviously we'll be continuing our prioritization work. At least we have a sense of where we want to be. And so understanding how to work with funding entities, we have goals that we know we want to achieve. So this is just a way for us to see what our need is and work towards that. And this last slide is just a summary of all of the things that we've discussed tonight. I want to continue working on diversifying the general fund revenue, the general fund capital revenue sources. It has been heavily bond dependent for a long time. And at some point, we really need to think about how best to bring in other sources of funding. But again, this year is a year for us to focus on our existing assets and our needs and put us in a better position for the future. So I think I will end there. I know there was a question online about our dedicated tax budgets. And I can touch on that briefly if you would like. So in the packet that I shared tonight, I did have the breakdowns of all of the dedicated tax budgets that have historically fallen within the city's general fund capital budget. And that includes the Greenbelt Fund, the Conservation Legacy Fund, and the Street Capital Fund. The Greenbelt and the Conservation Legacy Fund are all proposed by Parks, and DPW proposes the Street Capital Fund. So I specifically pulled out into the packet tonight those three to clearly show what is being proposed. Otherwise, it kind of gets hidden within the overall capital budget. I don't remember all of the questions, but I just wanted to reference, I think there was a question on the unallocated restricted category. That is truly related to the percentage that the Parks team has to set aside for the Conservation Legacy Fund for acquisition of land. That is what that is about. And I know Cindy is online too, so if we need to dive back in, we can do that. So I think I will stop there.
Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate it. All right, questions from counselors online or in the room? I see Councilor Broadwick's hand up. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. So I don't want to fearmonger or anything, but in terms of the threats to federal funding and tariffs, what projects what near-term projects is your team most concerned about?
Well, I don't know that I have a great answer for that because I think everything is so up in the air on the federal level. It's really hard for us to say 100%. I know we just learned about a library grant that was pulled from the NEH, and we're working through that issue right now with the library team. Thankfully, that was a smaller amount, but it still is impactful, and it is still something that we have to work with them to address. You know, obviously that grant was really important for that building. The historic portion of the building that needs to be repaired and renovated. So, you know, we're taking these one at a time. We are trying to set our teams up for success. And, you know, bringing in dollars where we can quickly. I will also give an example where we've worked with teams to proactively request reimbursements of funds. We brought in money that way with the parks team, and also with library, we were able to get money from another grant to help support that project. So there are different things that we can do. You know, on the facility side, I will say that team has been really proactive, working with vendors to identify materials that we can buy sooner and rather than waiting, so that we maybe beat those increases in tariffs. But that is just truly project dependent and situational. And until we really learn more about the federal funding issues on the general fund capital side, I think we're kind of just trying to, just see what happens next.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Are you all set?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Litwin.
Thanks so much. Sorry, I had multiple tabs open. So I am looking at the attachments to the agenda, and I don't see this particular presentation, so I can't go back to the specific slide, but I'd love to know more about the software projects specifically listed. There are several different numbers here, and then I think you had a slide that had replacing the accounting software at over $500,000. And I'd love to understand, not knowing much about the cost of enterprise level software, how replacing accounting software costs $550,000. And then I see something about $250,000 for software projects, and then a roll up to $600,000. So I'm just a little confused.
Those questions are probably going to be best answered by Scott, who has the detail of that. And actually, you may have things to add here, but I'm just jumping in to say that, of course, capital is made up of a collection of lots of other, technical budgets. And so I think we should probably consult with Scott, but I'll just say that 500,000 will not be enough for the large project, which is, we say accounting software, but that is our entire financial, like everything that is running, anything having to do with finance. It is the backbone of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just at the beginning of exploring that, but 500,000 is not the total cost. That is a portion of the cost. And I think we'll have Scott reach back out to you to talk about that, as well as how he came up with the prices for some of those other softwares, because he'll know much more about that than either Ashley or I.
Okay, thank you.
Ashley's job is to be a high-level generalist on pretty much the entire part of the city, which is quite a remarkable feat that I've picked up in this last year. Councilor Litwin, it looks like you're all set. You went back on. I'm going to take one back on mute as a sign, so I don't have to.
Yep, I'm all set.
Okay, great. Other councilors, Councilor Grant.
So when we look at fleet, stuff I get really obsessed about is like fire trucks and ambulances. That whole concept of locking in a price now for something you can't get for 3-4 years. And then now, of course, the whole, it's not called secondhand market, but it has
Used.
Used,
Yeah,
yeah.
it has like a different.
It's like pretty good.
Searching
of vehicles.
Yeah, it's like searching for vehicles, but it has like a fancy name. And then that market, I was told is getting pretty tight because everybody's going toward it, in terms, so. I was wondering how much we're gonna be affected by that, like how much is going to be locking in money for vehicles we won't even have for years.
Yeah, well, I do have the list, that I've been working with the fleet team on, and there are actually 2 vehicles on there for fire specifically. I will note that in this last fiscal year, the Chief LaChance was, actually worked with, I think it was Catherine and Brad, to secure funding somewhere in our existing budget to secure some money to order an ambulance this year. So I don't know if that was placed or not. I think it was, but anyways, that is in process. So there's 1 ambulance. In this 3 million from the general obligation bond, we have, in working with fire, the fleet team identified a pumper truck. They wanted to, I think, go down from a ladder to a pumper truck. And I think it was better for what their uses are. And then also another ambulance. So I think the chief, from my recollection, getting those things lined up is going to, I think, help them feel better about where they're at with their fleet. And those things can be ordered as soon as the council authorizes the fleet purchasing memo in about a month. That comes through the tube, that comes through the process. So I'm thinking that that's gonna hopefully help everybody out. I'll also just note that we may also have found some additional dollars too for some cruisers outside of bond monies. So I'm hoping that in FY26 we'll be able to put a good dent into some of our other struggling general fund fleet needs. Yeah.
You'll see more of that when we come with the fleet purchase in late June, July. Have the whole list of bonded vehicles as well as revenue, special revenue vehicles.
Thank you. Great, and with that, we are just about out of time. So thank you, Ashley. If there's, as my usual PSA, if there's additional questions for any of the presentations tonight, either now or later on, all the presenters are certainly available to questions via email or any phone companies. I have been trying to promote you, will you accept my promotion? Oh, yes. And while we're just setting up the next presentation, Council Lou and just your original, plenty of things to mention in your questions, comments. We double checked and the presentation of Ashley's the presentation files, the slides are online, at least on our end, so just FYI. Hopefully a refresh will help.
Thank you.
Yeah. Moving on to our next item, which quite a bit about water. It is item number 5, our water, wastewater, and stormwater division. You're joined by Megan Moyer. Lou. There we go. Hi, I'm Megan Moyer. I'm the Division Director for Water Resources. We are a division of Department of Public Works. Quickly, our organizational chart, color coded so you can see all the different things we manage. The brownie color is mostly wastewater as appropriate. The dark blue is the teams who specifically work on water. The red are our customer care and billing folks. Green is the stormwater, and then anybody sort of in the tealy color are folks who work across all 3 waters. We're called sort of one water folks. This FY26 org chart represents a 1 FTE reduction from FY25. Steve Roy, a longtime person, has retired, and we had him sort of in a succession position, and I had always promised, even though we were adding some other positions, that we would not be backfilling his role. So highlights, any year where we're able to produce clean water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days without beach closures that we've seen in the past, even with our very aged infrastructure, is a highlight and is a good year. Other highlights included a lot of coordination with the general fund or the TIF funded capital projects in the Champlain Parkway. And why this is a highlight for us is that contrary to previous, large scale projects, we worked really hard with the tech services team to make sure we were addressing the subsurface infrastructure.
course, that does mean that some of these projects are going on for longer than people would like, but it is so important and it's going to pay dividends in the future, both for ratepayers as well as for household. One kind of cool thing that you may not know about is we worked with the Pomerleau Plaza on Shelburne Road. The public-private partnership, we're able to secure grant funding to build, we believe it may be Vermont's largest, if not the largest, certainly one of the largest gravel wetland, treating that entire sort of Market 32 plaza before the water goes into Potash Brook and ultimately into Lake Champlain. Gravel wetlands have the highest phosphorus removal. We were able to collaborate with the general fund and Ashley on the bond outreach, and together we're able to, get success on all of our bonds. And for us in water to have 80% approval for the amount of money that we're asking for and for the rate increases we're proposing. I won't get verklempt, but I have gotten verklempt about that because it really means a lot to our team. And then in FY25, we also worked with Chapin and with the streets team to create a dedicated collection systems team. So we transferred 3 street maintenance workers so that they could focus all of their energy on pipes and catch basins and some of the things that, periodically would fall off the map. So as far as cost savings, our cost savings, I would say more are sort of in the better service delivery for FY26. One of the things we're really excited about is in FY26, customers are going to see a much more modern customer portal and single sign-on for payments. The one that we have right now, if you use it, does not make me happy. One of the cool parts is with our new payment service, we're going to be able to add a whole bunch of other additional payment options, including digital wallet, recurring credit card payments, etc. There's a minor cost increase for it overall in FY26 because we're not going to be rolling it out until the 3rd quarter. But as we move forward, we're actually projected to save money overall, which we think is cool when we're able to get a better product for less money. And then we think we'll also see additional cost savings over time as customers switch to online payment versus checks. We're really excited, and I know there's some people out there in the audience, Karen Long in particular, who we've been talking about this forever. We're adding a fall clean sweep. So right now we do a spring clean sweep, but hey, the streets are also dirty in the fall when all the leaves fall, and we're together with Lee's team, we're gonna get that done in the fall as well. I already mentioned the reducing of the staffing. We tightened some personnel expense lines. The way we had previously managed those OneWater people that were in the teal was to put them in one budget, in the water budget, and then to try to cost allocate them out. There's a lot of estimating that's involved with that, and we were able to work with Catherine's team, Jason Gal, to cost allocate those directly via the payroll system and not trying to do these back of the envelope calculations. Really excited that we got a $2.3 million pollution control grant that we secured for the current project that's happening at Wastewater, the Headworks project. I've mentioned the pollution control grants. We are putting a lot of hope and faith that those will also come for the really big projects. It was really cool to get this one right now. And then we are also going to continue doing project coordination with those general fund projects for Cherry and Bank, Winooski Bridge, making sure again that we're either leveraging other funding or at least using that opportunity to replace the things that are underneath the roadway. We haven't dived too much into this before, but we do track our overall revenue and our overall how much water people are using, and we don't really have any control over how much water people use. And we are seeing a general trend downward right now. We think with some of the projects that are going to come online, it should go back up, and certainly with the growth that the city is anticipated to see, we do hope that it's going to start to trend back upwards. It can be very highly variable due to precipitation because people are using the water for irrigation, and we particularly see this with our one wholesale customer. We sell water to Colchester Fire District, and there's a lot of farms there. It could also be the conversion of some of that farmland to residential properties. That's something I want to dive into a little bit more to try to get a little bit better projection. Not going to go into this, but this is just a breakdown of the different customer classes so you can kind of see what's driving some of this. We have seen a downward trend in commercial usage. And then again, we see some fluctuations and dips in the wholesale and the irrigation. The significant expenses that are driving the rate increases, we have pretty significant pay-go capital increase. Pay-go capital is the capital that is in our this year budget and is not debt service funded. So that we can rebuild one of the dewatering units. This takes the solid product of the wastewater, it squishes as much of the water out so that we can then ship it off for disposal at a variety of different facilities. And we had to take that out of the bond for a lot of different reasons, but we do need to put some money into it to rebuild it so it will continue to buy us some more time. We've got the debt service for previously completed projects, as well as the planned upcoming 2025 water revenue bond. Some of the other borrowing for wastewater is not going to come until later, but and I'm happy to sit down with anybody to really look at this. If we're going to do sort of incremental, reasonable rate increases, we kind of need to start the stepping now to get ourselves ready. Otherwise, we will have to play a whole heck of a lot of catch up. And I don't want to have to jack somebody's rates up the amount that we would have to if we did that. What that is allowing us to do right now with wastewater is to take some of that money and put it in a capital reserve, for if things go wrong that we didn't anticipate, but also for some planned investments that in our plan, we're actually looking to fund with this capital reserve. Really, really excited to bring to you that this budget includes affordability enhancements. We talked a lot about that when we were looking at the bond plan. And so the affordability enhancements that we're bringing forward, should you choose to support this, is a addition of a stormwater fee discount for the income qualified customers. Right now, income qualified customers are only getting a discount on the water and wastewater portion of their bill. And then we are working really well with BED to figure out how to get some affordability assistance to renters. Renters don't pay their water bill, but we know that these water resources bill increases are going to impact their rates. And so what we're going to do with BED is actually give BED money to give BED customers, income qualified BED customers, a discount on their electric bill, thereby keeping some more money in people's pockets for at least their utility line. And then we additionally had to increase fees to street maintenance. Our water distribution team they're having to do a lot of work because of water main breaks, but also we're doing a lot of work proactively, and there's a lot of surface restoration costs that Lee's team does. And then the previously mentioned ball clean sweep, which we'll call Clean Sweep 2.0. Here's all the numbers. I can go into them into more detail. We're looking here at the various revenue requirements, which are operating expenses, the debt service, pay-go capital. There's that RAP, the affordability program discount that's on that other, that second to bottom line, and then the capital reserve contributions. We always try to maintain enough days of cash on hand to deal with the different fluctuations. So we try to keep that above 120. In stormwater, I try to keep it a little bit higher because we could have an emergency that in and of itself could be quite expensive. And so it makes sense because it's so subject to climate change to maintain a slightly higher one there. The good news, at least from my perspective, and I hope you agree, on the top line, this was the rate plan that we presented in many presentations that you all sat through. And what I'm really happy to present is with everything rolled up, including adding the cost of the affordability program, we're able to stay below what that original rate plan is. We're also seeing over time at this moment with my assumptions currently, potentially a dropping down of the overall rate increase over the 5 years. A lot could change about that, but this is what my current snapshot looks like. So we're looking at an overall bill increase for a typical customer of just under 15%. That puts the typical customer bill at about $68. I'm showing what the RAP customer, that income qualified customer, so that's somebody who already qualifies for SNAP or some other type of federal assistance. They're only going to see a $2.33 increase a month. That's because we're adding in that stormwater bill component. So that this first year, they're going to kind of like get an extra benefit. And then the estimated indirect assistance payment that we would be giving to each income qualified BED customer is about $16 a month, which we hope is going to help folks who may be already having a hard time. Similar to others, threats and opportunities. I am certainly worried about the tariffs, primarily with regard to our wastewater treatment plant project. We've been seeing in the news, or at least in the industry, that there's some projects that are coming in much higher because of that. Climate change, anytime we get a wet year, we can have increased expenses, and that's often when we have less revenue because of the irrigation issue. We are currently in conversation about our new wastewater treatment plant permit with the state. The biosolids regulatory environment, folks don't want PFAS anywhere, and biosolids have PFAS, forever chemicals in them, not because wastewater has them, but because they're in the environment, and we're always on shaky ground as to what may happen with that, and if we have to ship those across multiple states, the costs that are already at $1 million in our budget could grow astronomically. Some cool things, you know, we've been working with Ashley on bringing back impact fees for water and wastewater. I don't have any of that in my budget because I don't know exactly when those projects are going to sign on. Our team does an extensive amount of permit review, but we don't charge developers for that. And so we're working over FY26 to try to bring that in. And then, you know, we do think we're going to start to see some additional water demand from projects that are either nearing completion or at least, you know, getting underway. I'm also really excited about the staff resourcing. We have added staff over FY24 and 25 in particular, and they're finally getting trained up, and we're hopefully starting to reap the benefits of having those additional people so that they can take the pressure off of some of my team. And then we think there's still a lot more opportunity for collaboration with Burlington Electric on just getting the word out about the affordability programs.
Megan, if you can scrap up.
Yep. Ta-da! So in summary, our projected overall bill increase is just below the originally projected rate increase for FY26. We're going to be rolling out this affordability benefit, particularly to renters, which we're really excited about. There's only one other place in the country that's doing that, in Seattle. And we are still staying on that predictable trajectory for what I would call incremental rate increases versus just one giant mountain that we all have to climb. That's it.
All right. Opening up for questions and comments from counselors. Love silence. Oh, Counselor Travers. Okay, break the silence.
Have to.
Well, I can't let you go with no questions, so. No, I think it's just a brief comment here, which is, Megan, you weren't here earlier, but I think I've been reaching out consistently to each department head. And I'm sure you've already done this review and push at the mayor's ask, but please anticipate one more push to see, you know, whether or not there's any line items here where sort of department by department, we may be able to shave off another couple thousand, another few $1,000s. Generally speaking, the common theme as I've been looking at budgets is trying to figure out, is there a little bit of padding in line items like contractual and professional services, contracted and professional services, for example, consultants, where, you know, maybe we could consider a slight decrease there. So I will follow up in writing with more specific asks, but just thought I would put that out there. And then just generally speaking, sorry.
On that question, I just wanted to remind, I know you know this, but just for folks and new counselors, of course, our water division is an enterprise fund. So in terms of any additional cost savings, to just back to your prior question, won't help the bottom line for if you're changing if you all decide to advance a different strategy for the gross receipts. We can't use any savings from the water resources division to help with that.
Right. Understood. And thank you for that clarification, Maren.
Yeah, and I am happy to go through, just so you know, I do physically go through every single last line and like look at trends, look at what we are doing and whatnot. I'm happy to take another pass at it. So it's always a good exercise, and I always learn or find something that I hadn't thought about before.
Well, and I very much trust that's the case, which brings me just to my next comment here, which is that I just wanted to take an opportunity here, Megan. You know, we've seen you lately around the context of the water bonds and our pushing with respect to doing more around affordability and so on, and didn't really have an opportunity to say how grateful we are for your leadership of this department, really years worth of leadership of this department. And you know, as we enter into this next exciting year in this new project, really could not ask for anyone better to be at the helm of the department and the team. So appreciate your hard work, appreciate your team's hard work, and look forward to the coming year.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, Councilor Travers. Other questions or comments from councilors? We're getting us ahead of ourselves now. We have 3 minutes.
Don't jinx it. Can I go back to my slides and talk more?
No. All right, well, with that, thank you, Megan, and we will keep chugging along. Our next presentation is, well, it's basically completed in our traffic and parking facilities, item number 5. Item number 6, actually, we are chugging right along. Jackie is here. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you. Awesome, okay, let's start with this is our chart for 3 divisions, including parking services, which is part of the general fund that Chiefman talked about earlier. So budget, first one is budget 264, revenue is from on-street parking. Expenses are signs, lines, signals, and crossing guards. Highlights from this year, we continue to manage on-street parking revenues. Replaced a lot of the single space meters that are in the core with multi-space meters, kiosks. In July of this last year, we purchased a sign printer. This is an example of a sign that was purchased. And lastly, we adjusted on-street parking rates for inflation in January of 2025 for the first time in about 10 years. Cost savings, we are currently negotiating a new Park Mobile contract, and most likely it will cover the cost of credit card processing fees instead of the city paying for them. This is consistent across multiple departments of the city, including parks. We are removing all of the gray topped meters in the core, replacing with multi-space meters, much less expensive to operate, also way less signage and clutter on the sidewalks. We are proposing to end our sublease with UPP at Courthouse Plaza, possibly as soon as June, but definitely by the end of October. Just the next couple of slides are some numbers. And bets and opportunities for this budget. Opportunities, we are thinking about adding some more metered spaces, such as the parking lot by Beansy's Bus or up by Champlain College. Considering some public-private partnerships similar to what we have at 194 St. Paul Street, which is the Champlain College garage we manage, they own, works out very well for both of us. And we're also looking into selling some of the signage to other departments and other municipalities. Currently, we've sold to a bunch of departments, P&I just today, parks, a bunch of signs, and then we've also sold to, excuse me, the town of Swanton. And we're reaching out to other cities to see if they want to buy from us. Some of the threats, there are fewer on-street parking during construction and then after, and we also have very old infrastructure. A lot of our signals are way past due for replacement. Budgets are largely the same, staff is the same. Kiosks are a big move this year. Those old meters are becoming obsolete. And then exciting with the sign printer, we think we're gonna be able to increase revenue, especially in the next few years. Parking facilities 265, revenue comes from parking, garages, lots, expenses. Big highlights for the first fiscal year 24 was the first net positive that this budget has had in a lot of years, at least through the pandemic. Fiscal year 25 is going to be even better. We're projecting around $300,000 this year, which will go to paying down some of the $2.5 million in debt. And this is
custom repair of the elevator by the high school in the downtown garage, which has not worked in 5+ years. Cost savings, we finished a debt service on the old garage system that was taken out a few years ago. The Park Mobile contract for this will save almost $380,000 between these two budgets. Haven't signed that yet, but that is coming within the next week or so. The city owns the first floor of the Westlake garage, which is right behind the hotels on Battery. That is due to be sold the next 2.5 months. Burlington Square is, we've met with them. This is SD Ireland's new hotel plus 90 apartments. City Place, yes, they're calling it Burlington Square now.
I didn't know that until you presented it
Yeah,
the other day.
yeah,
City Place,
Burlington
maybe I'm
Square.
the last to know, but thanks.
So yeah, they're starting doing new permits for them starting in July, which is awesome. We have a new introductory rate for new downtown businesses. They get half price off permits for the first 6 months, unlimited number of permits. We're excited to offer that. We are working with the mayor's office to help relocate the food distribution to a more safer and hygienic location. 2 stair towers are still closed in the Marketplace garage. We have the sheriff currently working 4 days a week, 1 on the weekends, and we're also working with BPD to cover the rest of the days. We increased revenue targets for this based on license plate recognition. And we're working with mayor's office to get this new technology. It's going to be a car mounted camera that will just expedite the process and offer some other options like a punch card for parking hybrid workers. Budgets modestly reduced to be more realistic post-pandemic. They've been definitely off for the last few years. Staffing has remained the same. We finally are fully staffed at the garages. Working with CT office to finance this $2.5 million debt, which is currently just a revenue anticipation note, and that we are paying a lot of money to kick down the road. And we are starting to pay principal on the $750,000 loan for Marketplace Garage that will be paid off in 3 years.
Thanks, Jackie. Well done. This is a competition, but it kind of is.
Everything.
Everything sort of is. All right, questions or comments from counselors? No one else. Oh, Counselor Carpenter.
Just quick, and we can take this offline. A recommendation that maybe you could talk to the Accessibility Council about public education on use of the kiosks. Not every handicapped person uses a handicap sticker. Cannot tell you how many people tell me, well, I don't know where to go. I don't know how to use the coins. And I just feel like there's just a lack of education about, you can come downtown, there still is a meter. How do you access it? So I just think there's work to be done on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor Carpenter. Counselor Schechter here. I was just like doing that trick in my head, and then we'll go to back online to Counselor Towers. Yes.
I just have a quick question. I know there's some conversation, and it came up in the resolution on Monday around the offer for free parking. Is that included in any of the projections? Like, is that accounted for anywhere if we do decide to offer all of that?
No, the only free parking that we do have is 2 hours free at the downtown garage every day. That is okay. Nothing beyond what we currently are offering.
We'll go to Counselor Travers and Litwin and then Grant.
A question, again, perhaps more for Catherine than for you, Jackie. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to confirm, I appreciate that the bank and regulatory fees associated with credit card purchases that we're expanding, well, not sort of swallowing that cost any longer. I believe, but I'm hoping to confirm that that's the case, as you mentioned, Jackie, in other areas too. Like when we received the parks budget, for example, Catherine, there's a number of bank regulatory fees, line items. I believe though that those are captured in increasing the administrative fee on folks who pay by credit card. But I guess my question is, are there any city departments where consumers pay with credit card where we will not be capturing credit card fees in FY26?
I do not think so. Definitely not for the general fund. That was clear direction from the mayor in last year's budget, and it took a little bit of doing because we have, different agreements with different companies. But it is my understanding all of that has happened and customers are now paying all of those fees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Litwin.
Thanks so much. And yes, even my eye doctor now charges the credit card fee. So the question I had was about the marketplace garage revenue. I don't know if I just didn't see it on the presentation, but I was curious, kind of a year over year. We hear sort of qualitatively that the garage or certain garages are being used less than in years past. And I'm just sort of curious if we are down revenue from FY23-24, and if you have any insight there.
I don't have numbers from 23 on the top of my head, but I did 24 this week, so we're projecting around $60,000 down in transient for Marketplace Garage, and we may make that up because we are offering more permits in the garage, so it may be a wash. I can get you the final numbers, but as for transient people who are just coming to the parking garage on a daily basis and parking, we're down $60,000 estimated for the end of the year.
Okay, thanks. And so, in your opinion, do you have any thoughts on kind of what we can do, or what issues you think are driving that?
I think that people are afraid to park there. And I think the sheriff being there has helped that a lot. I think we just switched the schedule recently to have one weekend day, but we're also now working with BPD to fill the other day. We've added a second security shift from 3:30 to 11:30 p.m. Of someone just walking up and down the stairway to make people feel a little safer. I think that the perception right now is just not great for the garages.
I think that's great. I really appreciate you sharing that so that I can share that with people. Maybe just if when you have time, if there's we could get that in an email, or if parking could share that on social media so that we can start to share that widely, and not just within this community, but to just sort of acknowledge that people have concerns about the parking garage and that we are addressing it and that it is a safer place now. That might help us not just recoup some of the lost money, but have a better year next year. And thanks so much for the time.
Thank you, Counselor Litwin. Where was I? Counselor Grant.
So I guess I'm gonna change my question. You started to refer to the marketplace garage, and then you said garages plural. So are all the garages down with regards to income?
No, actually, downtown garage is probably up year over year. I don't have the numbers, but I would say they're up year over year.
And what do you think people are afraid of?
I think that the people that are hanging out in the garage are what people are afraid of.
Okay, so I want to be very careful of, I know we need to stick to budget stuff, but I do want to be very careful about, we're in the midst of a very heated controversy around the free lunch that is provided. I've been there. I encourage other counselors to go and meet the people who organize it. I think if we're going to do the type of requests that my fellow counselors ask for, we need to be very specific because there's just a lot of things going on. And especially around the situation on Center Street, which has been an issue, and that's close to the garage. Simon's has been an issue, and that's close to the garage. The empty bookstore because Phoenix moved to Church Street. That's been an area, and that's across the street from the garage. And some of the issues at the on and off with local churches, but they've been doing more no trespasses. So I think we have to be very, very careful because people are trying to associate the lunch program. There's a lot of things going on. The other thing I had was a UPP contract.
Yes.
So that was what we put in place to offer some relief around the construction.
Yes.
Then there were complaints by businesses that it wasn't being used a lot by the public because there were actually a lot of construction vehicles being put there. Do you have any insight with regards to that? Like how much were we paying?
I don't think that there were many construction vehicles in the garage. They were parked maybe on street or something. That's the complaints that I got.
Yeah, I got some complaints that
Okay.
some of the vehicles were in that area sometimes.
So what, can you restate your question?
Well, I'm just wondering this exercise of having that be available, was it? I mean, what were we paying in terms of the subsidy?
So we were paying UVP around a little less than $12,000 a month. We were still collecting revenue for folks that were parking there. We also offered monthly permits, which were fairly well used, especially by students. So the subsidy was anywhere from $3,000 a month to probably $8,000 when the street was closed or when there was less use of there. We went to and asked for less spaces. I think it was mostly used when the other that garage has 2 or 3 other levels, and we had shut down the levels for Main Street, Great Streets. And so those folks parked in our level that we were leasing, and then a lot of the Main Street business owners or workers, they were also offered permits for that garage. So we decided, or we're in discussion now of not doing that. Main Street lot as of a few days from now will be open. It was strength today, and just the usage is not where it was, not what we were hoping it would be.
Okay.
Can I just add to that from the construction perspective? So Laura Wheelock, city engineer, Main Street project manager. Having the ability to use the courthouse lot has been integral in providing a community that is very directly impacted by this construction project, the available adjacent. As the water sewer work has gone through, it's an activity that's really hard to maintain driveway access or business access to parking lots that these businesses use for their employees or their customers. And we have graciously been able to, through this opportunity, provide them parking in this structure. And so when you hear that it's construction people who are in this garage, they're displaced because of the construction. We also find that the VFW or CHD property across the street has purchased parking inside of the structure. And unfortunately, it's SD Ireland doing civil site work, so it does optically look a little confusing. But
It's good information, thank you.
Yeah, it's really been a really useful tool as we move forward with the landscaping kind of items on the surface. The ability to access these areas is less limited. Thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah, just a quick question. The meter hood fees, is that like for promotional people when they put it for, you're saying it's a revenue source? And is that like when the holidays, somebody gets a promotion of making money by putting their advertising on meter hoods?
No.
So yeah, so I mean, it's 181,000, so.
So that number is very skewed this year because of all the construction, but let's say you lived on a street with a meter and you wanted to move, you could purchase a meter bag for $15 and put your own, you could save that meter space for you.
Okay, so that's like a reserve parking.
It's a reserve
program.
parking spot, yes.
And
Those bags that say like Saturday, June 30th,
Yeah.
9 AM to 5.
Yeah, and that's 181, and then I'm looking at the on-street meter. Do you think that that drop of, almost 400,000, 375, I don't know what you're stating. 375,000, is that due to either construction meters being out that we're not getting parked on? Or is that just overall just meter, just like, can we measure that or?
We don't do occupancy on street, so it's not, I would say it's a little bit of both. We are
Yeah.
losing 67 spots on Main Street.
Yeah.
So that has something to do with it and possibly less people.
Yeah.
The on-street parking is highly subscribed, so there are, it's difficult to find a spot on street a lot of the time because there's people parked there, which is a great thing for me.
Yeah.
So
Us too.
for us, I think it's a little bit of both.
Yep, and then you're anticipating 2.1 million again this coming year, even though we're very short on that. Is that just based on the last 5 years, when we've done other construction projects, you felt that it's been stable?
Yeah, so the meterhead fee that's offset because some of the meters were paid. So city police paid for the meters that are on Cherry Street that they're encumbering right now.
Okay.
So that's a little bit offset. So some of that money will go into the other, but we did raise rates this year, halfway through the year. So I expect that for next year it'll be higher because of the rate.
Because the rate increase, not necessarily.
Right.
Good, that's all.
With that, we are just about out of time. So Jackie, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And to my Board of Finance colleagues, Bill Ward, who is our Director of Permanent Inspections, is double dipping tonight at some sort of proceeding. And I think he's been yes. I can't find words right now. So anyway, so he'll be here soon. So I'm going to take us to item number 8, which is our city attorney's office. And then hopefully Bill Ward will join us within that 20-minute block and wrap up our agenda. Assuming there's no objection from my fellow Board of Finance members, we will do that. So welcome, City Attorney Jessica Brown.
Thank you. Let's see. Sharing skills.
He does have the most cleverly designed slides after reviewing all of these over the last so far. So no, again, it's not a competition. It just spoke to me for some reason. I was like, oh, there's design in there. That's great.
Well, I have to give credit to our legal administrative assistant, who's also very artistic, Kristen Kaishton. Thank you for making our slides look great. Hi, everyone. Yes, Jessica Brown. I'm the city attorney. And this is the organizational chart for the city attorney's office, which is a lot more full than I think it's been in some recent years. I'm actually I think I'm gonna come back to this slide and just skip ahead for a moment to the next slide. This is my first slide of highlights. It certainly was a highlight for me this year to be appointed to this position, but we had a lot of other hiring and personnel changes this year that were also highlights. Prior to when I started in August of 2024, the office had started a search for a new assistant city attorney, and we completed that search after I started and hired Emmett Wood, who joined us in January. I will talk a little bit more about our search for a deputy city attorney. We did post for a deputy city attorney. Gosh, I can't remember when we first did that, but the result of it was that we ended up promoting essentially Eric Ramakrishnan, giving him a new title, Director of General Government and Transactional Services, which sort of mirrors the director title of Assistant City Attorney Kim Sturdivant, who is our Director of Litigation. I appreciated former Councilor Busher's questions during public forum, and I want to make sure to address them, including that Eric, although he's only been with Burlington for a little bit over a year, did come to us with 10 years of municipal attorney experience in California and in private practice when he moved to Vermont before he joined the city attorney's office. And finally, former Councilor Busher also mentioned that our paralegal of 30 years, Lisa Jones, did retire this year, but we were really excited to hire Shay Brunband, who's in her second week, which has mostly been spent dealing with the backlog of parking ticket appeals. Shay had the fortune of starting right after snow plowing and street sweeping. So as you might imagine, a lot of cars were towed and their owners are not happy about it. So she's getting up to speed on parking, as well as she comes to us from working in the court system. So she actually has a lot of experience with all the different divisions of the court system, and we'll be getting up to speed on housing board of review, land searches, lead lands, all kinds of exciting stuff. But I do want to go back to the slide with our org chart to talk a little bit more about the deputy city attorney position, which has been reposted. The deputy city attorney position was a position created by Dan Richardson when he was the city attorney. At that time, he also created the director of litigation position and appointed Kim Sturdivant the director of litigation. I see the deputy city attorney position and the director positions as opportunities within the office to recognize the experience of people within the office. We have not had an influx of a lot of applications for the deputy city attorney position. This time around, it has just been up again since the beginning of May, and so we'll leave it up for a little while longer. When I spoke to Lynn Reagan on Monday, we had not received any applications. So I do want to temper expectations a little bit, I guess, while I'm talking about this, just to say that, I think to get an experienced municipal attorney to either leave federal practice or leave, private practice is going to be a challenge. Given the sort of chaos in the federal government right now, I sort of hoped maybe we would see more applications, but that remains to be seen. And so depending on what kind of application pool we have, we may have to pivot. But I guess want to emphasize that I feel like we have a lot of really excellent experience within the office. Kim is our director of litigation. Eric is really our go-to for anything financial, contracts. I'll talk a little bit more about this on another slide, but he created our new purchasing policy this year and trained many city staff on it. Haley is really one of our leaders on labor and employment law, and Emmett is learning really fast about contracts and helping to create new contracts and that are more streamlined and easier for our staff to use. So we have a lot of great experience within our office. So other highlights I already mentioned, Eric created our new, in collaboration, led the creation of our new purchasing policy. We are constantly trying to, receiving feedback about from staff about working with the contract templates that we create. So we're trying to make those as simplified as possible. The hotspots meetings have been going on for a while, led by Kara Anaswari and Chapin Spencer. But recently, my office has started participating in those with the goal of kind of identifying tools that we already have or tools that we can tap into or create to sort of figure out how we can better engage with members of the community whose behavioral impact is felt in the downtown core. I came with a strong relationship with the current state's attorney, so I've been tapping into that. And, we obviously work closely with Chief Burke and with our own Community Justice Center, are trying to contribute our ideas and efforts towards addressing concerns in the downtown area. We provided legal support this winter to stand up the emergency cold weather shelter, and I wish I could say that this was revenue for the city attorney's office. It is not, but Kim Sturtevant works closely with DPI on zoning and permitting enforcement, and that resulted this year in over $148,000 in fines and fees to be paid to the city either by court order or through an agreement. So more than 3/4 of our budget is personnel costs. And really, I just want this slide to reflect that even though, we are one of the smaller budgets among the city departments, we still take seriously our responsibility to try to be efficient with our budget and not to be wasteful. And it's really a team effort in our office. Shortly after I started, I had a meeting with our administrative assistant and with Attorney Sturtevant to review the budget, and everyone in the office brainstormed about things that we didn't need anymore and ways we could try to trim our expenses. I got a question earlier today from Council President Travers, so I thought that I would, and I did address it for him, but I thought I'd address it for everyone, and to just clarify so one of the ways that we have tried to trim our expenses is through taking advantage of any special rates we can get for, there are certain memberships, licenses, ongoing education that all of the attorneys in the office have to do. And as we add more attorneys, those numbers go up, but we do try to find ways to take advantage of cost savings for group registrations and things like that. But specifically, we have two budget lines. One is called books, and the other is called dues and subscriptions, I think. Books does include still some print materials, but it's actually mostly our Westlaw subscription, which is our legal research, online legal research platform. And dues is really our memberships in like the Vermont Bar Association and the International Municipal Lawyers Association, which provides us with a lot of support. Okay, so we're not really a money-making department. We do get interdepartmental revenue from the enterprise fund departments. That's not a calculation that we do. The treasurer's office does it. And so they've anticipated that revenue to be down a little bit this year because we are doing more work for general fund departments and less work for enterprise fund departments. I do want to talk, the other thing I wanted to address that former Councilor Busher asked about is, actually, I guess I'll wait one more slide before I get to that. So here are our, as I understand them from the budget that I reviewed with Jason from the Clerk Treasurer's Office. We will, as of the report that Kristen ran for me on Monday, we are at about $892,000 worth of our budget. And looking at fiscal year 26, we're looking at a slight increase, which is attributable to anticipating having 6 attorneys and the increase in cost for attorney salaries and other benefits. What I wanted to remember to mention, and that is on this slide, is that there is a line in our budget for consulting services, we typically refer to it as outside counsel. Counselor Busher specifically used as an example Joe McNeil. And in fact, Joe McNeil and his firm served as the interim city attorney before I was appointed. And I still have a standing meeting with Joe and his partner Nick Letty. So we do consult with them regularly. And similarly, we have kind of longstanding relationships with several attorneys and firms throughout Burlington that provide support, whether it's serving as conflict counsel for the police commission, serving as bond counsel for the clerk treasurer's office. Karen Stackpole from Paul Frank Collins is providing counsel for us during union bargaining this year. We're bargaining right now with police and fire. SRH Law has helped us on environmental litigation, and McNeil Letty, who I mentioned, provide consulting services for us and also are representing the city in some litigation as well. I noted on here that we are obviously not directly impacted by threats to federal funding, but it is turning out to be a significant part of our time now, particularly mine. Tracking federal executive orders, memos from federal agencies, advising our departments and department staff accordingly, meeting with, Nicole and Ashley and Catherine about grant funding. So while it's not a direct threat to funds that we receive, things happening out of Washington, D.C. are taking up resources and time in our office. One of our goals, certainly we've heard from counselors and certainly the mayor, there is, I think, a consensus that everybody would like to start modernizing our charter. So we're ready to get started on that. We've tried to provide more regular litigation updates for the council this year. And then, as I said, we do work extensively with outside counsel. I think that because of the longstanding nature of a lot of the relationships we have with outside counsel and their appreciation of the work that the city does and the financial circumstances for the city, I think that, maintaining and nurturing those relationships, one of the results of that is that all of our outside counsel are very conscientious about how much they charge the city, frankly. I think we get pretty good discounted rates from our outside counsel. With that said, it's certainly always a goal over time to try to be able to rely on office staff as opposed to having to go to outside counsel. I will, with the caveat that certainly in the past 9 months that I've been in this position, one thing I've realized is that litigation is a full-time job. I used to be, in a trial office and do litigation and went to court every day. I don't, that is not really the majority of the work of the attorneys in the city attorney's office is supporting the legal needs of the 17 other departments in the city. So we will always have to rely to some extent on outside counsel to handle our litigation because that is a full practice in and of itself. So I do kind of just want to say that out loud. I guess that's it. Questions and discussion.
Thank you, City Attorney Brown. Questions and discussion, as she said. Councilors.
No, I will stop.
Councilor Schechter.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
The first is, I'm wondering in budgeting for this coming year, you're talking about threats at the federal level or just like new bodies of work. I imagine that's going to continue.
Yeah.
I imagine that as a city, we may also strive to be proactive in legally insulating ourselves from some potentials that may come down. I don't know. I just have a sense. Maybe. So I'm wondering if those increased costs or the increased burden on staff that they require, whether some outside support might be needed to sort of take on this additional work is accounted for at all in the budget or worth considering. Not that I believe we have much by way of being able to add expenses, but I do wonder if we're gonna see some increased needs.
Well, what I will say about the budget line for outside counsel now is that, so for example, maybe I shouldn't say this, but like, for example, this year, I think we'll come in under what we budgeted this past year. But we are asking for the same amount, because A, we unfortunately cannot predict what litigation we're gonna face in the next year. And B, to your point, you know, if we needed to sue the federal government, we might wanna enlist support, outside support. But I'll also say, like, so right now, I will say that a lot of that litigation is happening on the state level. And it's very unlikely, I think, that Burlington on its own would ever be suing the federal government. It would probably be, if it were to happen, it would either, you know, as part of state litigation or with other municipalities. So that's how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And the other is, am I correct in remembering when we have a larger kind of overall budget presentation that we're looking at about $750,000 increase in what in my head is like uncollected gross receipts or a new kind of, this is some new revenue. Yes, you're, it's nodding. So my question is, I have no idea sort of behind the curtain of that, what that looks like to bring in and collect. If there are legal fees associated or legal support needed to collect those gross receipts, is there any need to sort of account for that in this budget? And if so, is it accounted?
There is not a need to account for it other than we use a lot of Eric's time.
I was gonna say.
We're already using Eric's time, and so it's frankly a matter of how we prioritize that. But I don't think there are like hard costs that need to be accounted for in the city attorney's budget.
And you feel like that $750,000 is achievable without needing to add additional support, like whatever work would then be off of Eric's plate?
I am very confident in
Okay.
that. Yes.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? Counselor Travers.
Yeah, just quickly, Attorney Brown, thanks very much for the presentation. Appreciate you getting back to me earlier today. We'll probably avoid questions in the future around that books line item if we put in books / online legal software, right? Because I know that that's very expensive and also very much needed by your office. So thank you for that clarification. My only comment is in response just substantively to one point in your presentation, not on the budget, which I support as it's been outlined here. And that's just with respect to your comment on staff time potentially spent over the coming year on charter modernization. And just a comment from my perspective that I think we've all acknowledged for some time that our charter is outdated and archaic in many ways. I don't think the lack of change on that is a result of folks not acknowledging the archaic nature of the charter, as much as it's an acknowledgement of how difficult it is to make changes to our charter, both in terms of our having to send items to voters, but then perhaps even more importantly, it then needing to be supported by the legislature and our governor. I think as we look back over the last 10 years, taking out sort of redistricting efforts, I believe a majority of the substantive charter changes that we've passed here locally have stayed on the wall, so to speak, in Montpelier, whether it's the 3 gun reforms passed in 2014 or just cause eviction, or, now this year, I know that we're pushing with respect to the gun reform measure we recently passed, but it seems like the legislature will not take action on our redistricting effort, on our rental notification effort, on our police oversight effort. And so it's just a note that as we enter into the next year, and as we consider spending time and resources in your office on charter modernization, I just hope we can have a discussion collaboratively on, before we really dig in, the likelihood of success and whether or not it's really worth our spending that kind of time, effort, and resources on it when we know the fate it may face based on recent history once it gets to Montpelier. So just a note in response to the presentation, and we'll look forward to that discussion moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Travers. Other comments or questions from councilors? That's what we call a legacy hand from.
He turned his camera off, I think.
I know, I'm getting how you all work online.
Legacy hand.
Legacy hand, yeah. All right. Great, well, see, then, thank you very much.
Tried to drag it out as long as I could for Bill, but.
I know,
Yeah.
and I appreciate, I was giving you a lot of time. So it looks like we are at our last presentation of the night, which would be with our permitting and inspections department. As I mentioned before, our director, Bill Ward, has been trying to be in two places at once, and I don't think he's been able to successfully get here. I'm not going to hold this meeting open for that purpose. We will bump that item to our last meeting of budget presentations, which will be next Wednesday. So assuming there's no objection to that, since we don't have someone to present on the budget at the moment, we will have that be what we do. So we'll postpone that item till next week on Wednesday, May 28th, I believe is the date. And with no other business for our budget presentations tonight, I will adjourn our meeting at 7:30 on the dot. Yeah, thank you very much.